Oh, and it gives me and tells me that we're recording. That's nice.
All right, there you go. All right, guys. So we are now live and recording with Mr. Michael Olaski. I think I said that correctly.
Correct.
And for those who, weren't aware, we didn't really talk much about the other credentials you have, but, Michael was the Red Power Ranger. I believe it was season 3, correct?
Correct. Season 2 and season 3. So like a two-parter in season 2 and then full season in season 3.
So, and by far my favorite Ranger, the Red Ranger, of course, which is one of the best things ever. And I grew up on the Mighty Morphin series, which is amazing. So it's pretty cool. And then to have watched my son, he was obsessed. He watched every single season from season 1 all the way through to the current stuff. So he loves that stuff, right?
Nice, man. How awesome is that?
Show him what you brought with you. So he couldn't wait to dig this out.
Yes! Awesome.
So he was very excited about that. But we were really excited to do this. I know the kids have been really pumped. They were really excited, and it was really cool for me to see just how many of the kids, as we were talking to them during the week, were like, "Oh my God, I love that show!" Because it's like, the original series is how old now?
Yeah, the original series, I think we just went through like our 25th anniversary.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's in like season 28 now. So like, as far as like the debut, you're probably looking at 28 years in its entirety.
And meanwhile, the kids are all still watching it, which is what's amazing.
Yeah, kids and adults. You'd be surprised. I have so many people come up to me at like Comic-Cons and like my appearances, and they still watch it to this day. They love it. It's such a big part of their lives.
Well, and we had just about as many dads that were like, "Oh my God, I don't care if my kid hangs out or not. We're coming too."
I'm jumping on. Well, hi, dads and moms.
So, I guess a couple of the kids had some questions that they had forwarded to me, and we have some questions set up for you. And I thought it was really cool because the kids asked a lot of the questions that I thought I might ask, which I thought was pretty neat because like they're different, which is cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think the big consensus amongst most of the kids was, how old were you when you started the martial arts, and where did you start training?
So, I don't really know when I started martial arts. It's I get asked that question a lot because obviously it's what I do for a living now. I'm a 5-time mixed martial arts champion, above being in like movies and stuff like that too. So everybody's like, "Oh, when did you start?" And I was like, "Gosh, I don't know if I have an exact date." My father was a Green Beret in the military, so if he was gonna have I'm his only born son, and if he was gonna have a boy, he was gonna know how to fight. So I always say that I've been kicking since I can walk, because I don't even have like an age where I got started. I feel like my first official class was probably at around the age of about 5 years old. But again, my dad was a black belt in Tang Soo Do and a special forces military operative.
Oh, that's my roots.
Yeah, so he kind of started me off in everything, and then kind of pushed me into a class thereafter. So there really hasn't been a time in my life where I haven't been training martial arts.
That's amazing. So now you said you started in Tang Soo Do. Is that what you originally started in as far as structured school went?
Actually, no. My dad was a black belt in Tang Soo Do, so that's obviously the lineage that he was passing on to me. I think my first martial arts style was Shotokan karate, and then after that it was Taekwondo. So I have a black belt in Tang Soo Do as well as karate as well as Taekwondo. And then that's kind of when I started getting into like the acting thing and everything like that, going to tournaments first, and then I got noticed at tournaments. Then later on down the line, I met my mentors, Ron Balicki and Diana Lee Insano of Bruce Lee fame, and now I have instructorships in Kali and Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do, as well as Muay Thai and slew of others. I'm qualified to teach over 17 different styles of martial arts.
That's awesome. That's so cool. So, I mean, obviously Dad was in, and thought it would be good for you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Did he ever express what he felt the biggest benefits you'd get out of it were?
Well, the biggest benefit of martial arts in general is more than just kicking and punching. I think that martial arts is really good for people because one of the things that I love about martial arts is that you get to travel the world and experience and live in so many different cultures, all just by doing martial arts in your own backyard. So, you can be in in New York, or you could be in Pleasant Grove, Utah, where I am right now, and you can truly understand what it's like to live in a Japanese culture, or live in a Korean culture, or live in a Filipino culture, by studying those martial arts. And what I think that my dad took from that, being a special forces operative, he was a very worldly person, right? Going from place to place, country to country. And he learned so much from these cultures about beauty and acceptance and kindness, that he wanted to really pass that on to me in a way that what perhaps wasn't as dangerous as actually being a Green Beret in the military. So when I do martial arts, I really sit down and understand a culture and the way they think, and that's what's really beautiful for it. And on top of that, obviously being a structured military man, my father wanted me to have that same kind of structure and discipline. And martial arts is really good for honing in that kind of discipline, that kind of focus. I was a very kind of, for lack of a better term, ADHD, but that was like in the 1980s, so that didn't really count. Nobody knew what that was. And martial arts really helped me to focus and really respect the situations that I was in.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think there's so many kids nowadays, especially that are on here with us today, that's why their parents started them.
And that's good, and I think that you start for certain things, right? Lack of focus, maybe you need a little bit more discipline, maybe you need a little bit more respect, but then you start to love it. And when you really fall in love with something, you want to tell the world. And that's the reason why I do these live streams for you guys, especially during a situation like this, is because, when you're in love with something, you want to tell the world, whether it's marrying your spouse or whether you're in love with martial arts.
No, I get it. Believe me. I totally understand. So, obviously we all have those ups and downs, and there's struggles in all of our training. I mean, I think I told my mother 6 months before my black belt test I wanted to quit.
Oh, wow.
Did you ever have any of those struggles or obstacles where you wanted to quit on your way into your black belt, or was there
Absolutely. I think a lot of my tribulation with staying committed kind of boils down to my early teen years. I was starting to get into some stuff, interested in other stuff, and I really wanted to maybe play video games more, or maybe hang out with my friends more than actual training and studying. But thankfully, I actually went up to my dad one day, and this is even after both Power Rangers and Three Ninjas. I went up to him and I was like, hey, I think that after I can't remember which belt it was, but I think like after I get my next belt, I think I want to quit. And my dad basically said to me that any person worth their measure sees through their commitments. And you know what, Mike, you sat down and you committed to becoming a martial artist and getting your black belt. And even if you want to quit after that, that's fine, but I want you to see this through. And I'm pretty sure that was the best thing that he's ever said to me, because I can't even imagine my life right now and where I'd be at if my dad allowed me to quit. And, I get a lot of parents that come up to me and they're like, hey, so what do we do when one of our students says, hey, or my son or daughter says, hey, I don't want to go tonight. I'll say the same thing my dad said, which is, that's nice. Get your gi on and let's go to class.
Yeah, my mother used to tell me, get in the car. This is not an option.
Well, one of the most interesting things I've always found about martial arts, and I've experienced it as a kid because I've been in it so long, and now I'm experiencing it as a martial arts coach, is that the timidness of coming to class or wanting to do class pretty much ends at the door. As long as you get your child through the door, they're going to love it, and they're going to have fun, and they're going to be glad that they did it. it's just the process of getting ready that I think that me and a lot of other kids had, especially at that age. So basically all you have to do is just stuff them in the car and make sure they get to class. And then, you know,
Well, and
if you have a good martial arts coach, which I know that you are, you're gonna do just fine.
well, and I think it's even harder these days, right? Like when we were kids, their distractions were nowhere near what they are now.
Correct. There's a lot going on now. There's a lot of things trying to pull a child's attention into less productive activities. And, you know, I personally value my martial arts training as much as I value my school education, as much as I value my religious education. So when parents come up to me and they say, hey, you know, my child doesn't want to go to class anymore, what do I tell them? I say, well, tell them the same thing that you tell them when they don't want to go to church. Tell them the same thing you tell them when they don't want to go to school. And pretty much it's just, sorry.
Yeah,
you got to do it, right? Because what school doesn't teach you is problem solving. School doesn't teach you a certain level of critical thinking, as well as it doesn't teach you goal setting. And I think that's what martial arts is really good for, is teaching kids to set up a very responsible, realistic goal, and then create an action plan in achieving that goal.
That's awesome. It's so cool to like hear we're all on the same page, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a reason why we all love these arts.
That's it.
And there's a through line of thought through all of it. And you probably study a very different martial arts than I do, and we don't care about that. What we care about is kids and their success in the future.
You know, it's funny. Our lineage is basically the same.
Is it?
I started in Tung Sudo. I did Tung Sudo for a lot of years, and then slid into Taekwondo and Shotokan.
Oh, wow. Look at us.
So
our base understanding is pretty there. We're pretty level.
I was laughing when you started going through it, because it's like, it's an interesting three martial arts, and they all do kind of love each other. So It was pretty cool to hear that they were very similar that way.
Yeah, they do have a very similitude. So you're able to kind of bounce back and forth, which I'm sure really helps, especially back then.
Definitely. So one of the kids had asked me to ask you. So let me just see who it was. I believe it was Maeve. She wanted to know, and this was like very important to her. She wanted to know if you were in love with the Pink Ranger.
You know, I think we all had a little bit of a crush on the Pink Ranger. But I did not. I can't consider myself absolutely in love. You know, as someone who is with her a lot, you tend to be coworkers as opposed to just seeing them on TV. So you kind of get to know people. And Amy Jo and Catherine Sutherland, they're both beautiful people, and I see them today now. But you have to remember that because I was on the set and I saw how everything works, I didn't see, you know, her as Kimberly or as Kat. I saw them as the actors. So I don't think that I was truly in love with any one of them, but they were beautiful people, and I think a good schoolboy crush is not uncommon to say, if that's fair.
That's awesome. All right, Maeve, there you go. You got your answer.
Perfect. We figured it out, Maeve. Thank you for the question.
So, you know, obviously, I'm sure when you started training, TV and movies wasn't, you know, your thing that you wanted to do. You did it because you loved it, which I thought was awesome. Mm-hmm. You know, what kind of obstacles were there in the process of starting to get into that world?
Starting to get into the acting world, or starting to get into like the martial arts world?
The acting world.
The acting world. I think that, you know, the funny thing is, when I was young, the competitive martial arts circuit wasn't MMA in the way that I do now. The competitive martial arts circuit was karate style forms. There was a lot of kicking, there was a lot of yelling, there was a lot of screaming, there was a lot of like gymnastics tricks and stuff like that. It was basically kind of a stage atmosphere of things. And in the early 90s, if you got really good at martial arts, people would call you up and say you should do action movies. So originally, my problem with getting into the whole acting sphere was the fact that I couldn't act. I mean, I can pretend, but acting like martial arts is a real art. It's a craft that you have to learn. So I think a lot of that process was moving from how to be like a martial arts performer to being an acting performer. And then once you kind of get over that hump, you'll find if you look back on my career, most of the things that I get are martial arts oriented. You kind of lean on your talents as a martial artist and kind of use your acting to seal the deal. So to answer your question more succinctly, it's probably that I needed to learn how to act.
So the reason I asked the question, right, I'm sure you get that one a lot, was mainly because we have a big thing in our school, right, where we're very character driven. And one of the biggest things we teach the kids is that failure is your friend, right? So, you know, obviously, I'm sure that you had failures and things that didn't go the way that you'd hoped they'd gone in the process of all of this.
Absolutely. So what a lot of people don't understand when it comes to like what Hollywood is a lot of the times when you see movies, you see television shows, you tend to think that that's just what it was, right? They did it, they fixed it, and now it's on TV. The fact of the matter is there's a whole bunch that goes on behind those scenes. For every big project I did, for every Power Rangers episode that I did, I probably missed out on 100 different movie or television projects. We would go to these things called auditions, where we basically just do like a little snippet of what was going to appear on the show, and you would show up there and you would read those lines, and if they liked you, they'd call you back. If they didn't, they wouldn't say anything, and if they didn't say anything, you knew they didn't want you. And speaking of failing up, right, I failed on at least, looking back at my childhood career especially, probably 5,000, 6,000 big projects too, you know, stuff that would have been awesome and I would have loved to have been in. And part of success is failure, right? We call it failing up. The more you fail, the more you learn, the better you get, the less you fail eventually. So we like to compact failing into the young phases of life so that hopefully as an adult you fail far less than you do as a child.
Absolutely. So what kind of advice would you give a kid who's training right now? I mean, obviously things are a little crazy. Times are a little tough. It's a little different. You know, obviously these guys are in one of their obstacles right now. I mean, training from your living room is not the same as training in your classroom.
Yes. So, I mean, when it comes down to it, a martial artist is adaptable. What does adaptable mean? Adaptable means being able to change with changing times. It's easy to say that I want to be a black belt or I want to be a talented martial artist when things are easy, right? But now is the time that really tests your mettle. This is the time where you show yourself and everybody else that you actually want to be a martial artist. Because if it were easy, everybody would do it. You know, I have a great story with once my kids hit about purple belt, things start getting pretty difficult to them. And they're like, and when I'm trying to correct them and I'm being a little bit harder on them because they're a higher belt, they always say, I'm sorry, Sensei Mike, it's just really hard. And I always say, of course it's hard. You're a purple belt now. If it were easy, you'd be a white belt. And it's the same thing with even a white belt. If it were easy, everybody would be doing it. You guys are special for sticking with it and keeping training even though it's difficult. And that's what a martial artist does. They look for the most difficult things and they look to persevere through it. And that's that black belt mentality.
Awesome. So one of the kids wanted to know what the process was like to become a Power Ranger.
The process of becoming a Power Ranger, I mean, I guess it really depends on what they mean exactly. As far as like putting on the suit, there's a lot of special effects involved. They'll pause the camera, I'll walk off, and then a stuntman with the suit will come on and the helmet, and they replace me, and they would do a lot of the kung fu karate moves there. There's also that audition process that I spoke about earlier. When I came in for Power Rangers, I auditioned against hundreds of thousands of kids, and you know they were looking for somebody with the the martial arts acumen, right? The ability to train, as well as the ability to act. And lucky for me, I got booked for the role, which means I won that sort of competition for the part. And then after that, I actually found out that most of my martial arts prowess would be taking a back seat due to the fact that they prefer to use stuntmen over the actual actors, because they know if a stuntman gets hurt, well, then that stuntman can actually be replaced with another stuntman. But if the actor gets hurt, well, they don't have another Michael Lasky. They can't just hire another guy that looks like me. I'm sure they can, but I'm not. They might hire John Cryer or something, but I don't know. But they don't have much of a recourse. So a lot of the actual stunts in helmet after we morph are not the actors that you see very regularly. They are very talented stuntmen who have been studying martial arts all of their lives, and that's what they do for a living.
So that's cool. Like, that's something I didn't realize either. I would have assumed personally too that you guys were doing all of the martial arts work.
Yeah, so basically everything outside of the Power Ranger uniform, we did as actors. There wasn't really an ability to hide our faces when we were outside of the costume. But inside the costume, they replaced us with stuntmen who have been doing this all of their lives. And you guys got to remember that being a talented martial artist in a project like Power Rangers isn't enough. You not only have to be a talented martial artist, but you have to be talented at doing fight scene choreography, which is understanding when to punch and where. You have to be talented enough to be able to jump from explosions without catching on fire, right? There's sparks that fly out. There's a lot of dangerous things that happen. So just like anything else, nobody's good at everything. So they hire a lot of different people to play different roles in Hollywood so that they can keep everybody as safe as possible. So I specialized in acting and martial arts, so that's what I did. But I did not specialize in jumping on a trampoline away from a giant explosion. That was somebody else.
That's awesome. That's cool. What in your time on the Power Rangers set, what was like one of the craziest or funniest things that you ever saw happen on a set?
The biggest thing, the best memory that I have when it comes to Power Rangers was walking into that original command center for the very first time. Because I had seen it in season 1, just like everybody else. And I was excited about it, just as everybody else. And I just wanted to run around and touch buttons and click things. But that's when my martial arts training kind of came in, and I had to be a disciplined individual, because all of that stuff is a lot more fragile and a lot more expensive than people realize. So unfortunately, I didn't get to run around and go all hog wild and press all the buttons like I'd wanted to as a kid. I had to be a disciplined martial artist, and I had to I had to stand on a mark, a piece of tape in the middle of the command center while we shot our scenes, just so that we make sure that all the kids don't go around breaking all the stuff. But a lot of the best memory I have of that is walking into the command center the first time. They also closed down an entire water park for us to film in. That was pretty cool as a kid. And
That's awesome.
It's a memory that not a lot of kids have.
That's pretty neat. Now, did you know when you were hired that you were going to be the Red Ranger?
I knew that I was auditioning for the Red Ranger. However, I auditioned for the Red Ranger in season 1 when it was being played as another actor. So when people said that I was auditioning for the young version of the Red Ranger, when I saw the name, I was like, "Who the heck is this guy? I don't know him," because it was being played by a different actor. So I didn't quite understand what was going on, but I did know that he was the Red Ranger. That's what it said on the sides, and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to go in and I'm going to read these lines.
So how did you feel when you found out that that's the character you were going to get to play? I mean, obviously, in that era, that was the iconic Ranger, right? That's the team leader.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Red has, for the most part, been the team leader for the majority of the 28 years. There was Jason David Frank, who's a super talented martial artist in and of himself. He kind of led the Rangers for a good for a good stint. But yeah, the Red Ranger was my favorite. Everybody loved the Green Ranger and the White Ranger at that time. And but the Red Ranger was certainly my favorite.
That's awesome. So, I guess talk a little bit about now, right? I mean, you own your own school.
Correct.
And I know you teach exclusively children, correct?
Yeah. So, we've recently opened our doors because, a lot of adults, mainly Power Rangers fans, have been sort of beating down the doors trying to get kickboxing lessons. But for the most part, I specialize in kids. I love teaching kids. It's one of my favorite things to do, mainly because martial arts so influenced my life as a kid that I would love to be able to just give that gift forward. I have this mentality that I'm not only teaching kids martial arts, self-defense, and self-discipline, I'm also teaching kids how to pass this information on to the next generation. I've had a lot of accolades in life that I'm proud of, right? Power Rangers, I was in Three Ninjas, several other movies. 5-time mixed martial arts champion, ranked #1 in the state of Utah, #3 on the West Coast. But I think part of being a martial artist, a complete one, is moving from student to teacher and becoming that person in somebody else's life that you had. So my mentors, Ron Balicki and Diana Nasana, they're very special to me. They came in as parents at my wedding, right? They had the appropriate roses and stuff like that. They're a huge formative part of my life, and I think that it's time to kind of pay that forward and give new kids, a new generation, the gift that I was so fortunate to have as a kid. So even when I was a kid, I always knew that owning a martial arts gym and teaching the next generation of martial artists is not only what I wanted to do, but what I personally believe that should be the end of any martial artist's career. Everything comes full circle, and martial arts dies if you don't pass it on to the next person. So that's really what we're focusing on right now with the OMA Ranger Academy here in Pleasant Grove, Utah. We also have a private academy in Burbank, California.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
So cool. And that's literally how I felt when my time came. I competed, we probably crossed paths at some point. I was on the NASCA and NBL circuits, and we did all that stuff.
You've probably won against me, and I've probably won against you.
And
especially when it comes to NASCA. Yeah.
Yeah, and I imagine we're probably close to the same age, because if you were a kid in the 80s.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we probably did compete against each other. It was a very close-knit community. So
yeah, it's wild.
But yeah, you gotta close that circle, right? Otherwise martial arts dies. And it comes every student's time to become a teacher. And it just really was my time here. And that's what I try to impress on all of my kids, and what I hope your kids take away from this conversation as well, is that, training with you is much more than just going to class and learning something cool. Training with you gives them the ability to become trainers down the line, right? Well, that's why at my school we don't even call them students. We call them apprentices. Because the way I see it, the information I'm giving you, I'm expecting every one of those students to eventually pass that on to somebody else, whether it be just their child, whether they open up a gym the way I have and do it to the masses, whether they do it online. This information deserves to be preserved.
No, that's great. And a lot of the kids that are on here, I'd say there's probably a good quarter of them are in our leadership program, and that's exactly what they're doing, right? They're learning how to speak and teach and give back, and they're already in the process of coming in and helping out in some younger kids' classes. And so it is literally what it's about. It's that full circle.
Exactly. And they should be proud. They should be proud of the fact that they do that. It's a little more work than some of the younger students have to do probably. But you know what? One of these days, if you decide that you want to open up a gym, you always have this in your back pocket. And you'll understand how to clean a gym, how to lead a class, how to do all that stuff, and how to teach somebody in the way that you were taught. So it's a very valuable thing. I think they should all be grateful for it.
That's cool. So one of the kids wanted to know, what do you do when you're not doing movies and stuff and you're not teaching? Like, you know,
Well, I have a lot of hobbies. I have if you follow me on social media at all, you'll probably see a lot of my dog. I'm really into kind of like dog training and dog discipline. I have kind of a husky hybrid. So we take walks with him a lot. We do a lot of training with him. I play the guitar, not well. I play it poorly, but I play it well. I have this dream in my head of one day being able to play a blues show live, even if it's just like a small little venue. Everybody starts small. I love reading and I love learning about new things. I love science, learning about new science advancements and watching videos and stuff and learning more. You know, and in all honesty, it's a really hard question to answer because so much of who I am comes from martial arts, and that's pretty much all I like to do. If I'm not teaching classes, I'm creating content for teaching people online. If I'm not doing that, I'm training for a MMA fight. If I'm not doing that, I'm training for a live weapons competition. If I'm not doing that, it really my whole life sort of revolves around that. I always joke, well, my wife always jokes and says, she's like, you're like the Steve Irwin of martial arts. Like, you just can't stop talking about it. and yeah, it kind of envelops your life if you know, you're into it that much.
no, that's awesome. So I know we were talking a little bit about this before we did this, and you know, this is something we're huge on in our school. Like, you know, it's all about that give back. I know you have a charity that you work a lot with, and I know we wanted to share that with everybody. So you want to talk a little bit about the charity that you work with and what they do? And
oh, thank you so much. Yeah. So I'm throughout this process, I'm working with a charity called No Kids Hungry. And this is a great charity, especially for the times going on right now. There are a lot of kids who are, as most of you kids watching know, they're all stuck at home, right? But unfortunately, a lot of kids depend on school lunches and school snacks to feed them because they might not be as fortunate as you are in having, you know, parents that are able to provide with them with like 3 square meals a day and stuff like that. So there's a lot of great charities out there. I've picked one that I work with that I think is doing good work. And what they're doing is they're providing kids who are being homeschooled just like yourself, but can't afford to feed themselves for like lunches and snacks and stuff like that. They're providing them with meals. Whereas they would usually get those meals from school, but because everything's shut down, they're not getting those meals. So it's a real great charity. And what I would like to do is I have a website. It's basically just a web store. If you go to it, it's called coltranger.com. So like Colt from Three Ninjas and Power Rangers, Colt Ranger, COLTRANGER.com. And coltranger.com sells autographed prints. So the first autographed print we have for sale is me in the red Power Ranger uniform. If you're a Power Ranger fan, that's probably a good one for you. The second print that we're selling is me along with Grandpa from Three Ninjas. Most of you kids probably don't know Three Ninjas, but I guarantee your parents do. So what we're doing through this website is we're selling those prints and we're personalizing them and signing them and sending them out to you guys. Now, these prints are being sold. Usually I would give them out for free when I'm allowed to. But what we're doing is we're taking the proceeds of that money and we're donating all of those proceeds to the charity. No Kids Hungry, like I said, provides meals for underprivileged kids who are being affected by coronavirus. We're all being affected by it, but most of us, we're not hungry. And if you're frustrated right now, think of how much more frustrated you'd be if you didn't have lunch. That's the only thing I want you to think about. So guys, I would love to be able to personally sign one of those prints for you and ship it out to you wherever you are. If you're in New York or Timbuktu, I don't care where you are. I'd love to personally sign it and send it out to you. So much so that if you look at that website, there's a price going on right now. But if you enter the discount code at checkout, discount code is Red Ranger, REDRANGER, all one word, Red Ranger. If you put in the discount code Red Ranger, you're going to get 30% off of that price that's listed. So that'll change that price for you. It's far less money than gets charged at like the Comic Cons that I go to and stuff like that. And not only will you get like a cool print of your favorite Power Ranger or Three Ninjas, but you'll also be helping a great charity and a family in need.
Awesome. I love it.
Thank you. You know, we're all in this together. And a martial artist, one of my good mentors, Lynn Thompson, owner of Cold Steel, says that a martial artist is often thought of as a pillager of communities because they are so strong and they're good with the sword. But what a martial artist actually is a pillar to the community. It helps hold it up. And if given the choice between a pillar and a pillager, I'm definitely going to go for pillar. And I hope you guys help me do some good work, if not just having fun chatting with you guys here.
No, I agree. And then that's the way we feel too. I mean, it's always about giving back. And you know, I'm blessed to be able to do what I do for a living every day.
Yeah.
I like to tell people I can get up in the morning and put my pajamas on and go have fun with the kids.
Right.
So, you know, it's so important to me that I'm able to, you know, help the community out at any chance I get. So I loved that when we were talking about it, and that's the mission now. I think that's just an amazing thing that you're doing.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, I'm not the one who's doing the amazing stuff. The charity is. I'm mainly, you know, I was just a kid in Power Rangers and Three Ninjas who, you know, has access to great people who are willing to do great things too. So they're the ones doing the good work. I'm just hoping that I can help in any way possible.
Love it. So I was thinking, the kids want to see some cool stuff. I know we had said you were going to bring, you know, a helmet and maybe a sword with you. And, you know, I figured we'd show them that and then maybe open to the kids for a couple of quick questions.
Yeah, that works perfect. So I have some memorabilia here. It's hard with this kind of thing, but this is my red Power Ranger helmet. You guys might recognize this. This is the Tyrannosaurus helmet right there. It's a big helmet. This is what they call a screen helmet, not the action helmet. The action helmet is actually smaller. The action helmet is what the stuntman would wear, so it's stayed tight to their face. The screen helmet was actually used for actors to be able to take off. So it's a little bit bigger than the action helmet, so that we can take it off and you can see our faces on camera. But yeah, so this is the Red Ranger Tyrannosaurus helmet. You can take it off there just like that. We would hide our head behind it, and we wouldn't even unsnap it. We just take it off like that. And there's your movie magic for you. We would pretend that we were holding it like that, and we just take it off and hold it right there. So that is the Red Ranger helmet. Let's see, do I have another? I don't know where my power sword went. Why would I would have moved that? This is on my wall here at the Ranger Academy. This right here is the Power Ranger communicator that I wore during the series. If you remember, that's the thing that did that sound, deet, 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 and that's how we talked to Zordon. That's what would transport us to the command center. So that's the one that was actually used on screen. Here is a script from the Alien Ranger series, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And then there is a comic book that recently came out from Booten Comics featuring young me right there just underneath the Red Ranger and transforming into the Red Ranger, which is always cool. Let's see, I don't know where I put that power sword. I could have sworn I had it in here. And for the parents who are Three Ninjas fans, when it comes to Three Ninjas, there are several different styles of this mask. They kind of like cake our face and then develop the masks over. So this one isn't screen used, but it is from the set. So basically props and makeup made this mask. They didn't use it on the film, so they let me keep it. So this is Colt's mask from that Three Ninjas film.
That's awesome.
And I thought I had the power sword. If you guys give me a second, I don't know where I put that. Hold on 1 second for me. Where did I put the power sword?
Hey, boys and girls, if you're all having fun, give me a thumbs up. Awesome.
Oh, that's where it is. Just a second, guys. Sorry about that. How unprofessional of me, I tell you what. This is the Red Ranger Power Sword. This is the sword from the show that connected to the morphing grid and sat on top of that big kind of Megazord gun thing that they used to zap a lot of the guys. There's the Red Ranger Power Coin right there.
That's so cool. My son's sitting next to me going, oh my God, I want it.
I know. So many people, like, whenever I joke about it and I put it on, like, a TikTok or, like, Instagram or stuff like that, they're always like, oh, how much do you want for that? I was like, it's probably more than you have. Sorry. And here is the, this is what they called the Blade Blaster. So that was the zapper that they held on the holster of their side. Got a little broken piece right there, but that's okay. And then the Blade Blaster would pop out. It in the show, they made it look like it just came out on its own, but in real life, we actually had to take out the actual blade part and then do a little special effects type stuff. But yeah, that's your Blade Blaster. Ba-choom!
That's so cool.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so a lot of fun memorabilia. It really helps in kind of inspiring kids to get started in the martial arts. As I always tell, like, my parents, the goal here at the OMA Ranger Academy is to kind of inspire kids through Power Rangers and Three Ninjas and stuff to get started. But then we teach them the hard work and discipline and goal setting that also made me a 5-time mixed martial arts champion. So we do this like this kind of bait and switch with kids.
No, that's great. So I know a bunch of the parents have been private messaging me. Can you share your social media platforms?
Yes. On Instagram, I am at BigBangMike_. I think that's the same thing for Twitter, at BigBangMike_. TikTok is just at BigBangMike. My YouTube channel is my name, Michael Lasky, so youtube.com/Michael Lasky. And on Facebook, it's facebook.com/BigBangMikeRocks. So if you find me on one platform, they all kind of like link together. But yeah, I do a lot of weapons training tutorials, history lessons. I do a lot of like weapons tricks. And of course, I post a lot about having been in Power Rangers and Three Ninjas and all that stuff as well.
Awesome. So, let's take a couple questions from the kids, and then I don't want to keep you too long, but.
No worries. Yeah, let's take some questions from the kids. This is my favorite part.
All right. So guys, if you have a question for Mike, if you can, there's a little button on Zoom that says raise your hand. If you press the raise your hand button, I will open up your microphone. All right.
Go ahead.
Jack and Natalie, you guys are unmuted and you are on with the Red Ranger. What's your question?
Jack asked this question first. Go ahead, Jack.
Where is your other friend, like the other Power Rangers?
All the other Power Rangers live in different states. The Green Power Ranger lives in Texas. I think the Black Power Ranger lives in Los Angeles. So we're scattered all across the nation. But don't worry, the second Zordon calls us to get back into Power Ranger mode, we're ready.
Natalie, did you have a question? Go ahead, Natalie.
Why did he have to be red? Why did he have to be red?
Why did I have to be red? When it comes to auditioning, you don't really have much of a choice in the acting world. What happens is the production company or the company that's creating the television show, they decide the look of each character, and if you match that look, then you can audition for it. So what they wanted for the Red Ranger at that time was somebody who looked like I did at that time. So that was my only opportunity or my only choice to audition for, because all of the other Power Rangers were supposed to look so much different from me, if that makes sense.
Cool. All right, Jordan, you're up, buddy. Go ahead.
How did you how did you get into acting?
Yeah, I got into arts, actually. We talked a little bit about it earlier, but I studied martial arts. I worked really hard. I went to all of my martial arts class, and even when I wanted to quit, I didn't. And because I was such a good martial artist, people started giving me opportunities like Power Rangers. So somebody asked me, hey, you're a really good martial artist, and I see that you're going to all of your classes. Do you want to try to audition for the Red Power Ranger? And I said, yes. And that's exactly how that happened. So just being a very good martial artist is what got me into acting and being a Power Ranger.
All right, Mr. Caden, you are up. Go ahead. I love that you're in your Red Ranger costume to ask your question.
I love that too. Can you screenshot that to me and send it? That would be awesome.
Absolutely.
Put your hands down. Go ahead. That's good. Nice and loud.
How did you get
Go ahead.
your costume?
I heard that I'm past due, and I think I'm
something about his costume.
Oh.
How did you get your costume?
Oh, how did I get my costume? I actually have. Do I have the original costume available? Hold on. It's funny because you get a Power Ranger fan and they're like, how can you just keep these things lying around? But because it's such a big part of my life, apparently it's not that big of a deal to me. But yeah, I actually have a version of the Power Ranger costume right here. So what I usually do with this costume is, back before we all had to sit at home all day, I would go to martial arts schools and try to help inspire kids to learn martial arts by teaching power sword classes. So we would go to martial arts studios. We would teach you how to use weapons like the power sword. And then I put on the Power Ranger costume and we take pictures with all of the kids. So this is my Red Power Ranger costume, and I got this. I don't even remember how I got this. It was years ago. I think a prop guy gave it to me at one of the Comic Cons. So that's how I got my costume. But in the television show, our costume is manifested by the power grid through morphing. So basically, I would say, "It's morphin' time, Tyrannosaurus," and the power grid would enact and envelop me in my costume or battle armor.
That's awesome. I love it. All right, Caitlin, go ahead.
What was the most fun of being a Power Ranger?
I think the coolest part of being a Power Ranger is just how much of an influence I have in other people's lives. I go to Comic Cons pretty regularly now, and I sign autographs and stuff for people who want them. And there are so many people that come up to me and they say, hey, you know what? I actually got started in martial arts because I wanted to be a Power Ranger. And I think that because I'm so into martial arts and I understand the benefit I've gotten from it, it just makes me feel good that I might have possibly played a part in somebody getting their black belt one day. That goes for Power Rangers and the Three Ninjas movies. You know, I meet so many people who are like, hey, I own martial arts studios now because I like Power Rangers. And it just, that I think that's the best part. More so than being famous, more so than people watching me on TV or recognizing me or wanting my autograph. All of that stuff is fine and dandy. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. But my favorite part is just inspiring you guys, hopefully, to keep up your training and, you know, one day become a black belt and train the next black belts.
Awesome. All right, Ethan Brady, you're on, buddy.
Oh.
Or is that Emily that's asking the question?
Do you
Go ahead,
still
Caden.
make shows? Do you still do it?
Good question. Yeah, I'm still a member of what is called the Actors Union, and I'm still available to audition. I was recently in a film called The Sensei that's streaming now on Amazon Prime, though that's more for mom and dad than it is for you guys. It has a great message to it. It's a great film. It's very heartwarming, but parents definitely watch it first. And I do a lot of other kind of like acting stuff, industrials, different styles of like martial arts films and instructionals. But as far as like making that my main source of career, I'm definitely far more interested in doing what your instructor is doing, which is basically just teaching you guys. I'm really passionate about training the next generation of martial artists, helping them understand how to have a quiet power, right? And how being strong doesn't necessarily always mean being able to bully everybody around. Sometimes being strong is being a defender. That's what really impassions me, and that's what I do mostly now.
Awesome. All right, we're going to take two more guys, and then we're going to let Mike go because I know he's super busy.
Got a lot of privates, guys. I got a lot of kids, too, that I got to help out.
Mr. Ethan Kalasicki, I believe that is you, that you are unmuted.
Yes, go ahead, girls.
Do you have a favorite episode that you filmed?
Ooh, that's a great question.
That's a good question. Yeah, so you know what's funny is my favorite episodes are different than what a lot of other people might consider favorite episodes because I have a different experience. Part of being a martial artist is understanding that different people look at different things from different places, right? If I'm high up on a hill, I might look down on that hill and it might look really steep. But if I'm at the bottom of the hill, I'm looking up and thinking, man, how hard it is to get up there. And it's kind of the same thing with these martial arts or with these Power Rangers episodes. My favorite episodes comes from having filming them, whereas other people's episodes come from having watched them. So my favorite episode is not necessarily a favorite episode of most fans. There's an episode called What Are You Thinking? Attack of the 50-Foot Bulk. Attack of the 50-Foot Bulk is an episode that takes place at a water park. And in Los Angeles, where I grew up, there was this very famous water park called Raging Waters. We would always see television shows, commercials advertising it. I loved Raging Waters. And they shut down that entire water park so that we can film into it. So not only was I crazy about the water park and crazy about having been in Power Rangers, I got to put those two together, and they shut down that entire thing just for today's filming. And then what they did was at the end, they turned down all of the rides, and we got to go through all the water slides as many times as we want. We didn't have to wait in line because there's nobody else in the park. So for me, my favorite episode is Attack of the 50-Foot Bulk because of the memories I had behind the scenes, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Jaden and Robbie, you're the last ones. Go ahead, guys.
Last one, make it good.
Do you ever visit New York? Do you ever come to New York?
I don't come to New York as much as I like. I've been to the airport a few times to go other places. I actually went to New York for we call it our demi-moon. My wife and I, after we got married, we were going to go to Mexico, but that was a little long. We had to wait for that. So we actually went to New York for the first time. I've been invited to a few Comic-Cons in New York, but nothing ever solid. So I don't have any New York trips on my docket right now, but I'd love to. New York seems like a fun place, and I always love exploring places with the people that come from there.
Yeah, we got to get you out to NYCC, man. I go to NYCC every year.
Yeah, well, that'd be cool too. Yeah, I mean, from a business point of view, I also do lead generation for martial arts schools at their local Comic-Cons. So I'll basically be a booth attraction, and that'll help people get to the booth, and you can get them to enter a contest to win like a free month of martial arts and stuff. So if you ever want to do that, let me know.
That's awesome. Awesome. All right, boys and girls. Well, I want to thank Michael for his time. I greatly appreciate it. I know that, it's really hard to put this time into your schedule, and I know that time is one of the most valuable things. We don't get it back. So I really appreciate you donating that tonight to us and spending some time with the kids and telling them about your journey. And can all of you guys just wave so he can see you and say thank you and goodbye? And then, boys and girls, we'll make sure we're going to post all of Michael's social media stuff so that you can follow him and stay in touch. I'll post the website where you guys can get autographed pictures, and I'll give you guys a discount code so you guys have everything. We'll get everything put in your Facebook group, all right? Michael, thank you so much.
Hey, the pleasure is all mine, and thanks to all the kids that jumped on to hang out with me. I am busy, but I always make time to spread the love that is martial arts, and I hope that you guys stay diligent and keep training.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Guys, everybody have a great night. Michael, thank you so much. I wish you all the best. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
You guys have a good day. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
All right. Bye-bye.